Hello everyone, I am Mohammad Irshad. I teach philosophy at Andhra College, Women, University of Delhi. This is the second lecture on the media ethics. I had discussed in my last lecture about various aspects of the media ethics, and we have tried to understand what kind of possible aspects can be ethically located and explored in the media. In my last lecture, I had discussed about ethical issues in the print media, issues related to censorship and privacy, and issues concerning the audio-visual media. In this lecture, I will cover social responsibility and media, ethics in producing and screening of movies, media ethics, practical applications and solutions, and thereafter conclusion and further references that you can explore if you want to more learn about the media ethics. So here it goes: social responsibility and media. Media is one of the important pillar of the democracy and also known as the fourth pillar of the democracy. It has an extra social responsibility towards the society. It can reach out to remotest corner of the country. Impact that it can have on the people is wide and unquantifiable. Information received through newspapers, television and digital media is taken as a mark of truth and authentic knowledge by the ordinary people. If media presents the biased news, paid news and tilted to serve the interest of an individual and a group of individuals, that results into an unhealthy society which is housed on the foundation of misinformation, fake news and disinformation. That society can never become a knowledge-based society which truly regards the truth, value and wisdom. It therefore could be argued that media shall never divorce itself from social responsibility. It is quite evident that media must always be engaged with society in a responsible manner. If media is completely isolating itself from the real affairs of the society, that will become an abstract territory without any substantial purpose for the society. Instead, it must keep on fostering the sense of social responsibility in its entire process. It therefore could be argued that media shall never divorce itself from social responsibility. If media is keeping itself in isolation and not covering the genuine issues of public interest in the real world, then it will become an abstract territory, and that territory will have only theoretical meaning, not any practical significance for the larger sake of the society. It must foster the sense of social responsibility in its entire functioning and process. Social responsibility cannot be confined to a particular space or branch of the media. This must be employed in the entire functioning, entire organization of the media, entire process of the media. Nevertheless, attempts to theorize the nature of social responsibility in media is a Herculean task. It is one of the toughest jobs for the scholars to do. Millicent argues formation of media, repeat, Millicent argues formulation of media laws are to be effective and should have a potential to result in improving the role of media. Responsibility and accountability, the two prominent pillars, points, quotes, must always run parallel to each other. They are complementing each other. Their collective sense must prevail instead of responsibility and accountability are working in separation. They are complementing each other. A journalist, a news presenter must be held accountable for running wrong stories and showing distorted visuals. Recently, this trend is witnessed in the contemporary world because of the digital age. Wrong images on social media are circulated to defame somebody, to demean somebody. Similarly, on the televisions, earlier this used to happen, but there was no accountability the way it is now. Though the rampant information is in circulation these days, but earlier they could get away with anything, right? So television has this special responsibility. That means the audio visual media has a special responsibility to keep the structure of the society intact, to not promote wrongs in the society, social evils in the society. This may be demeaning and this can be very threatening to the individual dignity and for the very structure of the society. So journalist or any presenter of the news must be mindful of the fact that this news can have the larger impact. That perspective, that prospects of the news must always be kept in mind while they are going to write a story, while they are going to present any news or going to show visuals on the televisions or in the digital media. Though this trend is on steep rise in the contemporary times, they are writing the stories out of context, exploiting the sense of news. Similarly, as I have just said, it is followed in the television journalism, where visuals are just shown to sensationalize a particular subject, which remains very incoherent with the presented news. And that may result into hatred and violence towards an individual, group of individuals, or any community or sect in the society. So responsibility is a key subject, key domain that must always be discussed meticulously. In this sense, the obligation for proper custody, care and safekeeping of one's audience is necessary in a responsible manner to bring transparency in the society. The interest of society must be kept at the helm of media affairs. A commission on the freedom of press, that's called as a King's Commission, gave the following 5 guidelines to enable a free and responsible press. The first point is, media must be truthful, comprehensive, intelligent account of the day's event in a context which gives them meaning. So the first point is, media must be truthful. And the second point is, it must facilitate a platform to have various comments, commentaries and criticism too. The third point is the projection of a representative picture of the constituent groups in the society. The fourth is the presentation and clarification of the goals and values of the society. As I have earlier argued in my lecture, collective venture is important. Collective values are important to sustain entire society. And these values must be clarified again and again through the medium of communication, right? And these values must also be presented through the media. And it is the responsibility of the media to become the day's intelligence. That is the fifth point according to the Commission on Freedom of the Press. Press must serve, it must discharge its duties as to bring the maximum points to construct a healthy mind. Media must also expose to all the sides of a story or news to let the people form their free and independent opinions instead of infusing their own biases and ideologies. Independent and just media is the core of any democratic society. Social responsibility in media is a glue. It is the basic point that binds a society together, and it also inculcates the collective consciousness. It collectively, that means the media, projects our identities. It collectively projects the value of a particular community. It collectively presents our values. It collectively brings our values, our knowledge system, our morality, our aesthetics into public domain. So it translates into a pragmatic and progressive society if the responsibility which is given to the media is adequately followed, right? So social responsibility is a kind of obligation to media to build its well-being on trust, build its identity on trust by sharing the relevant and trustworthy information and news, and also incorporating the opportunities or aspirations in its discourse, in its presentation from the various communities. Ethics in producing and screening of movies. This is another important point to be discussed ethically in the media. Compared to television and radio, a movie has a more profound impact on the mass. Content of the movie inspires the popular behaviors of the people. Their values, sense of fashion, taste of music, marriage rituals, lovemaking, and many other things are determined by the popular movie culture. So it's evident that movies do play an important role in our lives. We cannot ignore the role of the movies. Gradually, due to the upsurge of the popular culture and impact of the movies on the people, censorship became a legitimate concern. When the abundance of content has become a new norm of the new society, then censorship became an important legitimate concern. The censorship legislation has a set of codes for movies with production codes for distributors and producers too. In India, the first Cinematograph Act came into existence in 1920. That was the first legislation to introduce censorship in India, and currently it is known as the Central Board of Film Certification. which is under the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, Government of India. In some of the larger cities, censorship boards have each year eliminated from the films brought before them several thousand scenes which they consider detrimental, and that becomes very important subject. Sometimes a director is satisfied with the content which is removed. Sometimes the real substantial content with a good intent incorporated in a movie is removed by the Film Certification Board. So there has to be a proper body of renowned people of that field to develop the ethical codes for the film certification. So censorship is a subject which must be adequately discussed before rules are out in the public domain. Despite having some positive sides, censorship can work as a major deterrent to the freedom of expression. That is the major problem. Generally, in a democratic society like India, if everything is censored, it again becomes a problematic thing. It is a major serious concern for a free society. But prohibition of obscene, filthy scenes and forbidding the importance, but the prohibition of obscene and filthy scenes which promote immoral things in the society is a healthy exercise if it is done through the censorship. Motion pictures are included in the list of articles that may be prohibited on the grounds of indecency from the channels of interstate commerce or circulation through the mails. The sympathy of the audience, though, never be thrown to the side of crime, wrongdoers, social evils and unethical practices. No picture shall be produced which will lower the moral standards of those who watch it. The correct standards of life, subject only to the requirements of drama and entertainment, shall be presented. Law, natural or human, shall not be ridiculed, nor shall sympathy be created for its violation. Media ethics, practical application and solution. Here, I will talk about Habermas and other thinkers. And there are a couple of theoretical points which are important to locate the debate or discourse of media ethics properly. Habermas's theory of communicative action and discourse ethics have indirect impact in media ethics. Ethics in the public space is discussed here. Habermas reminds us of the urgent need to protect and insulate the public discourse and its dialectics. Discourse is always collaborative or collective and bears an impact upon the receiving of a piece of communication. Following issues could be of grave concern. Perhaps censorship becomes inevitable for them for the sustenance of society, for the larger good of the society, for the well-being of the society, for the true structure of the society, admired structure of the society. The first is the crime against the law. The technique of murder must be presented in a way that will not inspire imitation. That's the first point. Whichever technology is employed in the making of a movie, that technology, that technique shall not felicitate a criminal. Also, brutal killings, drugs, revenge as virtues are not to be presented if we are glamorizing, if we are having some ideas which appropriate the notion of revenge. notion of killing or murder in a movie, that shall not happen. That cannot be allowed ethically. Sex, the sanctity of the institution of marriage and the home shall be upheld. Though we can have some open debate and discussions, but this cannot be completely presented as an evil institution. Pictures shall not infer that low forms of sex relationships are the accepted or the common things. Adultery and illicit sex, sometimes necessary plot material, must not be explicitly treated or justified or presented attractively. The scenes of passion, these should not be introduced except where they are definitely essential to the plot. Excessive and lustful kissing, which embraces and suggestive postures and gestures, are not to be shown. In general, passion should be treated in such manner as not to stimulate the lower and basic instincts of the human being, or lower instincts or emotions of the human being. Vulgarity, the treatment of low, disgusting, unpleasant, though not necessarily evil subjects, should be guided always by the dictates of good taste and a proper regard for the sensibilities of the audience. Obscenity is another important subject. Obscenity in word, gesture, reference, song, joke, or by suggestion is forbidden. It can be presented in form of a joke, but this joke must be in the good taste. But we cannot allow it to persist in the society. This cannot be advanced. This cannot be collectively used as a value. This may be acceptable to some extent in form of an individual value, but to keep the structure of the larger society intact, these notions cannot be presented as the collective venture of the code itself is a fairly commendable statement of objectives. The codes that we had discussed regarding the obscenity, regarding the sex, vulgarity, this is a very crucial, substantial statement to bring out the best objectives through the films. Unfortunately, it has not been effectively implemented or enforced. It has been used at times, furthermore, to bar criticisms of our social order as well as to curb the indecent. Motion pictures are controlled by a huge industry which has money making as its chief aim. With near monopolistic control by a few companies, free competition has been definitely limited. Higher standards of moral picture entertainment may be brought about by increased public demand. In this connection, as with broadcasting, we might encourage more critical reviews and use of film estimate services. According to a new study, pictures not considered suitable were those in which glorification of war, mediocrity, over sentimentality, uncalled for drinking, unnecessary brutality or cling, passionate love, undue sympathy for immoral criminal behavior. There is a moral obligation upon everyone to see that the films to which they and their dependents are exposed to are elevating, uplifting, not degrading the structure of the society in any way. We cannot undermine the impact of media because media generates the information communities. As in the new world, information has become a commodity which has a monetary purpose. It can bring some benefits because it is sellable. we must attempt to develop the media which is democratic and incorporates the concerns of all sections of the society, instead of allowing it to slip away into the lap of certain corporations, anti-people groups. Unless the press, broadcasting stations, and motion pictures are free channels for information and discussion, they cannot be the space for freedom of thought or freedom of expression in any way. And freedom of thought, freedom of expression is one of the fundamental concepts when we conceive the idea of human being. We cannot conceive a free human being without intrinsically talking about the notion of freedom of expression, because this goes along innately with the idea of human being. In the long run, however, the solution may rest with the education, public schools and the colleges and the university, because we can only discuss it in the classroom, but apart from universities, public schools and colleges, we need to also keep in our theoretical framework the practical structure of the society. If it is not effectively implemented or followed in the society, this will not bring any good results for us. This will only become a futile exercise. So theoretical understanding of the media ethics is important, and we must understand the practical dimensions of it so that the applications are properly followed for the betterment of the society. These rules, codes can help us to raise a new generation of young people with higher ethical codes, tastes and expectations. The public must be taught to be discerning and critical of what it reads, hears and sees. We are not the passive receivers of the information. Instead, we must critically engage with the content that we read, that we hear or we watch. If we are failing to develop a good audience or people who can think critically about the content that they are going to receive, that is again a very problematic thing in the society, because ultimately people are going to judge that content, and people, those who want to set their narratives, peddle their own tilted ideas, they can claim that this idea is widely received in the society without any kind of criticism or critical points. Therefore, this can be provided to people. This is sellable. This is what they actually want, and that happens with the pornography. The respect for the privacy of individuals, even of those of public figures, is to be upheld with due honor. Privacy could never be tempered in terms of public curiosity, which might turn out to be an excuse for mass media to cross their limits. The role of mass media could never be undermined, as it becomes so essential in contemporary world to enable a healthier society, nation, country and the entire globe. So this was it about the ethical principles of the media. I think this lecture and my last lecture will help you out to locate the discourse of media not only in the theoretical terms, and to see how media can work in practice, how the application of media in ethical terms is important. If we are escaping the ethical discourse in the media, that means we are also contributing in the enhancement of a wrong society. And for that, we have to bear the consequences in the near future. So it's better to start following these ethical codes and principles and to compel the journalists and individuals who are involved in the media sector to follow these rules, because we as audience can never allow them to present distorted facts so that the society will get the wrong information and that society may get triggered, that may convert into a violent society. That is something that must be rejected outrightly. We must hold them accountable. We must put certain kind of censorship. We must bring certain rules about the press. We must have the free press but not the absolute freedom in the press. So if we are employing important ethical principle at the core of media, which is an application, which is in practice, I think as a fourth pillar of this society, media can enable a knowledge-based society. That society's aesthetics would be uplifting, that society's values are more enriching, intrigued, they are accommodating, right, than developing a society which is narrow-minded, which is confined to certain dogmas, certain sects, or which only regards a particular religion or language, food culture or clothes. So to genuinely become a democratic society, we must discuss and employ the ethical notions, ethical terms at the very core or the structure of the media. Thank you so much. Hope you have enjoyed it. Thank you. Thank you so much.